In her career, Sofia had been called many things: prodigy, virtuoso, miracle. From the moment she first stepped onto a concert stage, audiences felt it. Her music didn't just entertain. It reached into people and touched something tender. When Sofia played the violin, the storms inside people seemed too quiet. Grief softened, joy rose uninvited. She didn't just perform notes, she translated emotion into sound, and listeners often left feeling understood without knowing why. Night after night, city after city, the pattern repeated. She'd walk onto the stage, lift her violin, and let silence gather like a held breath. Then the bow would move, and the hall belonged to her. Thunderous applause followed every concert, echoing as if it never wanted to end. Critics praised her technique, fellow musicians admired her discipline, and audiences spoke of her performances as unforgettable. To the world, Sofia was living a dream. But behind the applause and practiced smiles, something fragile was unraveling. Touring was exhausting and lonely. Hotel rooms blurred together. Meals were eaten alone. Her life belonged to schedules, flights, and rehearsals. More than anything, the distance kept her from the one person who had always anchored her, her mother. Every time Sofia played, she imagined her mother sitting somewhere in the crowd, listening with that quiet pride she had shown since Sofia's first lesson. Her mother had been the one to place a small violin in her hands as a child, guiding her fingers patiently, reminding her that music wasn't about perfection, but about truth. Whenever Sofia doubted herself, her mother's voice returned, steady and reassuring. Music, she said, was a way to speak when words failed. Then one night, after a long performance, Sofia's phone rang. The words on the other end fractured her reality in an instant. Her mother was gone, just like that. No dramatic farewell, no final conversation. The world Sofia knew collapsed into a silence so complete it felt physical. She traveled home in a haze, her violin case clutched like a lifeline. It was the only thing that felt familiar. When she arrived, the house was unbearably empty, filled with echoes of conversations that would never happen again. After the funeral, after the condolences faded, after the nights grew too quiet to sleep, she opened her violin case and lifted the instrument she had trusted her entire life. She tried to play. Nothing came. The violin was intact. The strings were tuned. The bow moved exactly as it always had. But the sound felt hollow, distant, as if it belonged to someone else. Each attempt reminded her of what she had lost. Every note felt like a question with no answer. Slowly, almost without realizing it, Sofia stopped trying. Concerts were canceled. Invitations went unanswered. The violin stayed in its case, gathering dust along with her confidence. What was the point, she thought, if the one person she had always played for would never hear her again? Months passed like that, heavy and colorless. Days blended. Music, once her refuge, became something she avoided. One rainy afternoon, Sofia wandered without direction, letting the streets decide her path. That was when she heard a thin, fragile melody drifting from a narrow alley. It was imperfect, slightly off, but unmistakably alive. Drawn by curiosity, Sofia followed the sound and found a small boy standing beneath a flickering streetlight. In his hands was a violin that had seen better days. The wood was cracked. One string was missing, yet somehow music poured from it with startling honesty. Sofia stood there, unnoticed, listening. The boy played as if the flaws didn't matter. There was no fear in his movements, no hesitation. When he finished, he noticed her and smiled, embarrassed but proud. He gestured to the instrument and said simply that it wasn't perfect, but it still played. Something inside Sofia shifted. She asked who had taught him. The boy's smile softened as he spoke of his mother, who used to tell him that music helped people talk to heaven. The words landed gently but deeply, opening a door Sofia had kept shut. That night, she returned home and opened her violin case again. Her hands shook as she lifted the instrument. She whispered to the quiet room that if a child could make music with a broken violin, perhaps she could make music with a broken heart. She closed her eyes and drew the bow across the strings. The first note faltered. The second carried warmth. Then came another and another, until the room filled with sound, not flawless, not polished, but honest. Each note carried memory and grief, love and longing. Tears fell freely as she played. She wasn't performing anymore. She was releasing something she had been holding too tightly. The following days felt lighter. Sofia returned to the alley and found the boy waiting, his broken violin resting against his shoulder. When he asked if they could play together, she nodded without hesitation. Two violins filled the air, one scarred by time, the other reborn through pain. Passers-by slowed, then stopped. Some cried, some smiled. No one spoke. When the final note faded, the boy looked up and said it sounded like both goodbye and hello. Sofia understood exactly what he meant. It was grief and hope intertwined, loss and continuation sharing the same breath. From that day on, Sofia played again. She accepted invitations, but she chose smaller venues, more intimate spaces. She spoke less and listened more. She played not for fame or applause, but to remind herself and others that broken things still carry beauty. And sometimes the deepest wounds create the most meaningful music, if we are brave enough to let them sing. As her performances continued, people noticed a change. The music was different. It carried less spectacle and more soul. Listeners described feeling seen, as if the melodies were speaking directly to their own unspoken losses. After concerts, strangers approached her not to praise her technique, but to thank her for helping them remember someone, forgive themselves, or finally let go. Sofia realized that grief had not taken her music away. It had reshaped it. The pain she once tried to avoid had become a bridge between her and others. Each performance was no longer an escape from sorrow, but a conversation with it. She began to believe that healing wasn't about returning to who she had been before, but about allowing herself to become someone new. Sometimes, late at night, she still thought of her mother. She imagined her listening somewhere beyond the reach of sound, smiling the way she always had. Sofia no longer played to chase that image. She played because the music itself had become the connection. Through it, love continued, even in absence. Life, Sofia learned, will always break strings, silence songs, and disrupt rhythm. But the courage to play again, imperfectly and honestly, is what transforms silence into meaning. And so she kept playing, trusting that somewhere, someone else would hear her music and find the strength to heal. In that understanding, Sofia found peace. The violin was no longer just an instrument. It was a reminder that even when something feels broken beyond repair, it can still create beauty. In sharing that truth, she finally understood that healing is not the end of pain, but the willingness to keep going with it. Her story became a quiet invitation to anyone listening: dare to play again, and let your own healing begin today. Always forward. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring English stories only on English Life Tales.